As expected, Nui has shown up with what looks like an aero rocket ship, but will there be a GP2 engine in the back? Welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast, where today we're going to recap this week in F1 Shakedown.
Welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast. Now here's a bald guy and some Indian.
How are you, man?
Pretty good. Let's jump straight into it.
Yeah,
Excited.
man. Let's go.
Excited.
Yeah.
Excited to talk about Formula One and most importantly, new cars. So,
Yes. Yeah.
Let's start with, which team do you want to start with first?
I think we should probably start with Aston because it's the most exciting.
I knew you were going to. Yeah. Go
Well,
for
it's
it.
just because, honestly, so far
Honestly,
this week...
you're
the
just
teams-
an Adrian Newey fan. That's all.
Obviously. But also, remember in 2022 when the cars showed up with, different variations of side pods and so on? When I was seeing the cars earlier this week, yes, when it came to, fine details, you were like, okay, Mercedes has brought more fine details than Ferrari. And, Red Bull had done some fine details here and there. And it was exciting. It was like, oh, this is interesting. But no team was, just wildly different. And then Adrian Newey cars show up. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. You have the crazy cut at the back, which we had already been hearing kind of an idea of a rough kind of new version of a blown diffuser because there was the hole in the back of the floor from Red Bull and Mercedes. Newey shows up with the hole in the floor, but also what looks like Batmobile exits to the back of the radiators.
Yeah.
And then for some, it's like, oh, the beam wing is not allowed this year, by the way. Well, Newey just brought that back by connecting the suspension directly to the rear
That
wing
was a
and
bit
creating
weird.
a beam
I
wing.
think
So
I think that might be it might be questioned. I don't think you can do
I'm
that.
sure there, but if it's not, you're not pushing the boundaries. You know what I mean? And
No, of course.
I don't know.
Of course.
It did, we had heard so much this week of teams bringing an A spec or a B spec, and I had even heard that Newey was going to show up with an A spec because he wasn't happy with the car and come with a B spec weeks from now. And it seems like Newey's team has basically said, no, we're showing up with the full car.
I don't think they're coming with the full car. I don't think this is a full car.
There's probably more in the pipeline, but I think that this is the spec that they have in production right now, basically to the full extent. Whereas I feel like Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull, they already have the rest. I think not all of it, obviously, but they already have a B spec built. They haven't brought it here. Whereas I feel like Aston Martin don't have the B spec built, and that's what they've brought here, if that makes sense. But I don't think it's going to be a B spec in the way that I'm expecting Ferrari and Mercedes to show up with what looks like a completely different car. I think Aston will come to Bahrain with a kind of evolution of what we just saw, because this seems like I just everything about it seems way further down the line than a Ferrari, for example. There seems to be a lot more elements here. Mm-hmm. It seems more in line with McLaren, for example, seems much further down the line than, say, even a Red Bull, for example. But again, I know Red Bull are bringing an early package the same as Mercedes. At least that's what I've heard anyway. So it would make sense. But yeah, I was getting a bit worried because I was like, we're seeing these cars, they all look not basic, but they all look relatively similar. And it was kind of nice, now we've got some interesting stuff here.
The front is almost similar for almost every car. I think it has more to do with the engine formula and the restrictions when it comes to the whole.
Yeah, they seem to all. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you there. I'll keep going.
It's fine. Good.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's the new regulations when it comes to the front wing. They are very prescriptive, so you have to be very careful in how you go about it. I thought there will be a few there are few variations when it comes to the nose part of it specifically, but the Aston Martin is radically different when it comes to that. I do think. Okay, so I understand your optimism. You've been very excited about the car. And again, a lot of people are.
Optimism is a strong word. I just think it's more interesting than the other cars.
Yeah. I just think that we need to wait and let the whole thing evolve.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Not jump the gun. But again, that's not the fun way to go about things anyways. For me, the whole... your takeaway is slightly different to mine, because I think what I have understood from the first 5 days of whatever running we've seen, I think Aston is under prepared. They're not really there when it comes to your. There's a certain learning curve involved, right? When it comes to your preparation, when if you have a certain X date when you have to start when the season begins, right?
Yep.
I think they are far behind the curve when you compare them to the likes of the top teams. And I think it should be a bit of a concern. And let's see what they do. Car is, at least it looks strikingly different. I understand that. I think the black livery has led to it has created a bit more of an illusion when it comes to maybe there is something that we can't see, or the aura is larger when it comes to this, right?
Yeah.
I just think that we need to see the car first of all in its proper livery, so that at least the details are visible. Once we have that, then we can start making the comparisons on where it looks, where it stands compared to others. So that's just my initial thing.
It's more interesting for me just because I feel like they've brought a much more advanced package that the other teams will bring to Bahrain. Yeah, aggressive is a good word. I just think like they've brought a package that's definitely further along the line of development than say a Mercedes have, and that's not because Mercedes is behind on development, for example. It's just Mercedes have decided to bring a less advanced package to this test, and I think that's indicative of just where Aston are. They're in a rush to do everything, and like you could see that as well with the fact that they limited the car to I think 250 or 290 kilometers on the straights during this, and that is kind of something you would traditionally do during a shakedown, like an actual shakedown. So it seems like Aston were treating this as a shakedown more than like a test in reality.
Yeah,
and look, I think that the main thing we can take away from this is at least this does seem to be a team where Newey is trying to push the limits on everything. And I think Aston, given where they've been for the last few years, they probably need that in order to just find out where all the problems are. Like just be pushed to the absolute, like, no, we are going to work overnight. We're going to push this to the limit. We are getting to that shakedown. Like unlike Williams, who said like, okay, we're just not ready yet, so we're not going to show up. Aston were like, no, we're going to show up even if it means like 4 minutes of running on the day 4. It's like, we're going to push this to the absolute limit. And I think that kind of culture is what's needed to win championships. And I think I'm at least glad that it does seem like Newey is bringing that. I still don't think this is going to be a title contending car this year. I think that like for the amount that Aston has gone through in terms of changes, it would be almost impossible to win a championship this year or to fight for one.
I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment. I think if they have the right car, and they could have the right car.
They have the right driver, I guess.
Yeah, the driver's there.
Stroll, obviously.
Oh, come on. I mean, what a disgusting. I felt so sad that Aston Martin basically gave a piece of the team, brought Adrian Newey over and let him build a beautiful car, and then put Stroll in it.
In fairness, they only put Stroll in it for 4 installation laps and then gave the entire day of testing to
It was only 4 laps because there was Stroll in it. It's the other way around. No wonder the thing broke in 4 laps.
Yeah.
It was so, I mean, like, fucking hell, just put Alonso in that car.
Yeah.
And he deserves to be in that car.
I just think, honestly, like the last word on that I'll say is just, I get what you're saying if they have the right car, but like, I think even if you have the right car, there's so much more that needs to be fixed. Like obviously I'm not just talking technical.
But 2023 showed that they, in terms of, because there are 2 aspects that I tend to look at when it comes to a team that's working. First is your the back end, which is your technical department and everything. Second is your on-track operations. So 2023 at least showed me that if this team has the right package in terms of the car and everything, they deliver on track. That's never been a concern for them, right? Okay. So at least one aspect seems to be sorted out. The worry is if they can give Alonso the right car. Right, that's what it comes down to, and that's
is a big ask, right? Because literally last year they were a midfield team, like, and even with Newey there, like the change doesn't come overnight, and then you've also got to worry about like Sakura, like what are they bringing? I
think that's I think right now for me, the whole thing with being limited to 250 on the straights, I think it is both. I think both the power unit and the car are the contributing factors, because here it seems to me that they are not entirely, it could be either of the two. They are not entirely confident about the power unit. At the same time, they are not entirely confident about the car being pushed to that point because it has been put together basically last minute.
I don't really have a concern about that. Like, obviously, I want to see did they like open it up in the afternoon session, because I'm not sure if they did or not. But like, I'm not too concerned about that because, for example, when Mercedes did its 200-kilometer shakedown session before coming to Barcelona, that is kind of normal practice to like limit the top speed on the straights.
Yeah.
Like, it's normal practice to kind of burn the engine in and figure things out. So given that like they're only showing up for one day and they're probably focused on like correlation work and just checking that like everything is talking and so on, I think it's probably like, okay, we don't want to just blow up an engine in testing because like we just want to open it up for a lap when they're not really that concerned. So I think if we get to Bahrain and like for the first day of Bahrain they're limiting the top speed, I'll have a lot more questions. But given it's day one, I'm not too concerned about that. I don't think it's a huge deal.
The problem here is on the very first day of running, Mercedes did almost 200 laps.
Yep.
And Haas did something, so 160, 170. I mean, Mercedes also did 160, 170. So they also had a shakedown of sorts, right? So, and you have almost an entire day to run. So, as I said, when it comes to preparation, they're behind. That's the basic
they're 100%
verdict.
behind.
Yeah.
Could be worse. Cool. It could be Williams. But then...
Or Cadillac. Yeah.
Or Cadillac, yeah. How many laps did Cadillac do?
They did... I think they've crossed a tally of 100 for the 3 days, but that's it. They are struggling, essentially.
Yeah, I've got from after the morning session, obviously this doesn't count the evening session, Audi as well had only done 161 laps over the course of the 3 days.
That's a good thing, by the way, for Audi, because they did...
still 3 times more than Honda, but anyway.
No, not even that. For the first 2 days, Audi did 27 and 4, 31 laps. So they've done more than 100 laps today, which is good.
Which is good.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's good.
That's a good
but also,
baseline for
like Honda, the downside to not having a customer team, right? Because if you have any issues with your car,
100%.
the engine doesn't get any. Like, I mean, Red Bull obviously had the car crash. I don't know if Red Bull got back out on track after that, the crash.
Today?
I can't recall. Did they get back out today?
Yes,
Verstappen did
Max did more than 100
today.
laps.
Yeah. But like, with Red Bull, for example, they had that issue. But like, you're still talking nearly 600 laps because they have the 2 teams working on it. So it's, obviously Mercedes wins there at 963 laps as of the morning session. I think they may have cost 1,000 laps by the end of the day, which is insane.
Mercedes wasn't running today, right? Yeah, McLaren. McLaren did 160 laps, 166 laps today.
Yeah, and you've got McLaren, you've got Alpine. I don't know if Alpine was out today as well with Gasly doing 164 laps. So
yeah, he did 164 laps. So that's crazy mileage.
Yeah. So cool. I mean, that's a lot of laps for those teams to do, So
exactly. So cool. Now let's jump. Again, now we've talked about your team that you wanted to talk about first. Let's go through them one by one. Yeah. Before we do that, we are 10 minutes into the podcast. So if you've survived 10 to 12 minutes of the podcast, if you're new, hit subscribe. And if you're one of our regular listeners, just tell me which team impressed you the most. Drop your comments and again, let's begin then. First of all...
Also, just to point out before we jump on, I'm Irish, not British. Moving on.
That
felt like
that hurt, right? That probably hurt more than anything else.
Not hurt. It's just, I think like before you insult me, just at least have some context. Like if you're going to insult me, like calling me British is really bad. Like, I mean, you could call me bald, fat, blind, idiotic. There's tons more that are more accurate than British. So let's just, Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
We should just change this to the post-colonial podcast.
Yeah. Fair point.
Anyway, sorry.
Is Ireland in the Commonwealth?
No. Yeah. Northern Ireland is Republic. Would you believe the Republic of Ireland, after all they went through, went, no, we're not joining your Commonwealth.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let's just talk about the test first. So first thing, in your view, the biggest shock for you when you're talking about the test, the 5 days that we've seen?
I mean, depends. I would say probably the lack of Ferrari breaking down is a huge shock.
Yeah.
I was expecting them to be way worse here. I would say the biggest shock is actually Ferrari in many ways. Again, like this all hangs on the fact that this is just F1 Shakedown. This is probably not their B-spec package. It's definitely not their
it's not the B-spec package.
But the engine seems to be reliable, and also like the lap times were decent by comparison. Obviously, lap times mean very little here because they could have just opened up more than Mercedes teams did, whatever. But the fact that they weren't like falling apart in this F1 shakedown for me, and they got some decent laps in, they got some decent times in. I think it's better than I've expected already for Ferrari, and I'm waiting to see what the issue is in Bahrain, because I'm assuming there will be one.
I mean that's always the thing with Ferrari, right? Yeah, I think for me the biggest shock or surprise is the reliability. There are no reliability issues apparently. Other than Audi, to a certain extent, I don't think we've seen that many issues or stoppages. Audi had a lot of issues in the first 2 days. The third day is fine. They've also racked up more than 100 laps. So interesting because as I said, always the benchmark is what happened in 2014. That was the last time you had a drastic change of power units.
Yeah.
If the reliability is sorted, it all comes down to what power output you have. I think next battle is going to be on that front only, and let's see what happens there.
Yeah. Well, the biggest question for me when it comes to reliability, though, is like, from what I've heard, basically no one was running the new fuels, and I'm wondering what a difference
the new
that's going to make.
fuels,
as in the full compliant 100% sustainable fuels. Because there's an exemption on, and I maybe this isn't accurate, but from everything I've heard, not a single team was running the new fuels this week.
They aren't running 100%.
But they will have to in the competitive sessions. Is the issue.
But they're running 95% sustainable.
I've heard way lower.
As in, I'm just taking a figure out of the hat. Essentially, what I'm saying is it's not 100% sustainable. It's some portion of it. Now, whether that ends up playing a role in the reliability or not, I'm guessing it won't. Because if it was such a big issue, they would not be doing that right now. Because they need to stress test these power units.
They do, but like, for example, like, obviously the F1 teams know more about this than some F1 podcaster, right? But like,
what are you talking about?
I know, yeah. Well, we say that actually, but then I did say Lewis Hamilton will have a horrible year in 2025, and we do seem to guess things more than the teams do sometimes. So who knows? But yeah, like, just talking from an actual like physics perspective, right? If we're talking about, for example, the compression ratio trick that we're pretty sure that Red Bull and Mercedes have, right? Like, Mercedes have so much experience that I would imagine they have thought about like every single, not just experience, but also consistency. Like, they have had that kind of engine department together for a very long time. Red Bull is like a mesh of people coming together. And as much as I think they've done an amazing job, like, there's going to be little gremlins that they'll need to fix over the course of their 100%. First year. And when you're talking about like not using the fully sustainable fuel, right? We don't know what fuel they were using, but let's say they were using like E20, for example, right? That is a lot lighter and thinner than a full synthetic sustainable fuel, right? So that's going to be a lot more.
These power units are not meant to run on those.
They're not meant to, but my point is we don't know what they're running, right? So let's just like, even if it's like 70%, right? You're still talking like, it's still a big increase in like the weight and thickness of the fuel, for example, right? There's things like that.
No, not
depends
necessarily.
What it is.
Yeah, so what
there can be though.
Yeah, so the primary difference is in the octane value that tends to be there. So your 100% synthetic fuel will have lower octane value compared to your 80%, 90% for a very for a very basic. In a very layman language, the octane number is how much energy you can extract from a unit of fuel or petrol, essentially, right? So if you're able to do that, I'm being very layman, by the way. I hope no genius comes in and corrects in the comments. Please, octane number means this. Yeah, anyways, so coming back to it, either ways, it's, again, I agree with you on one thing, that they might have an impact, good or bad, I don't really know. But it won't, when it comes to your reliability, essentially, it won't have an impact in terms of the stress that these power units will face with a 80% synthetic fuel is going to be far more than what they'll face with a 100% synthetic fuel. Essentially.
Sure. Like, I don't think it's like, the thing is, I don't think it's an enormous difference on like a relative scale. But the problem is, like if you're looking at, you're pushing that compression ratio already, right? So you're going from 16 to 18 as you're moving up. And then you have like a slightly different fuel, which can then mess with that compression ratio. It might be a slight amount, but you're pushing on like absolute limits. Like everything in Formula One, like you're, you know, a driver's driving absolutely perfectly at 100%. He kind of goes slightly over the limit and it's devastating what happens to the car. It's a similar thing on the engine. You're pushing it to the absolute limit. My point is more like you've got that fuel, and then you mix in the fact that like for a lot of this week, it was like 4-degree temperatures on track too, which is going to change how the engine's running. It's going to change like just in terms of physics and chemistry, like what way the fuel is running through the engine is very different when you're at cold temperatures versus at hot temperatures. So I think like the reliability look great here, but like those two little things, again, I think for a team like Mercedes, who has everything just going for it in terms of how they build their engines, I'm not expecting a huge difference, but I would not be surprised if we get to the main test and like Red Bull, for example, Bahrain, and like Red Bull, for example, starts having some issues. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I also think, plus also there would be an element of them trying to start pushing these things a bit more, trying to stress test them, right? So maybe we might see a few more issues. But even then, foundationally, this is such a good place to start, isn't it? Because foundationally, where we were in 2014, my biggest worry is if we end up with the same dynamics that we were in 2014, it essentially means if you do not have a Mercedes power unit, for the next 2 to 3 years, you can write off the championships.
Yeah.
It just seems, again, we don't necessarily know where all of these teams lie in terms of their whatever power they're producing. But at least if the engine is reliable, they can work on the other side of things. I think that's a very good way, at least a great benchmark from where the competitive order can be developed, right?
Yep.
That's
I'm not expecting like a huge drop off of like all the engines starting to blow up in Bahrain, by the way, either. Like I think it's at a great point. I just mean it'll be interesting to see when they start getting pushed, if that reliability kind of, we see it be a bit more shaky than it has been
coming in.
Yeah, because there's just a few more variables.
Okay, let's just go through the teams now one by one, just briefly and keep it short. So first of all, let's talk about Mercedes then. A gallon, just a ridiculous number of laps, and at least in out of the first 4 days, they did the 3 days and they just got it done. What stood out for me essentially is there was this sense that this was a bit of a throwback to the Mercedes of turbo hybrid era, right? They jumped in, they did the laps, and they did a lot of laps. They ran throughout the day. The times they put together, they weren't even pushing, and they turned heads every time they ran on track. At least whatever has been reported, the comments from other teams is that the Mercedes looks good.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to say that they are probably the best when it comes to the preparation for the next season? I'm not saying we don't really know the performances at all right now.
Yeah.
Right, so we can't really comment on that part. But at least when it comes to being in a position where everything is working like clockwork, I think they've kind of nailed it, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, I think they've been the outside favorites for this season for a long time now, and like this, they've also been like massively confident too in their abilities. Like they're overly confident in my opinion, to be honest. Yeah, which that also concerns me when it comes to F1 teams too, because that has come to bite a lot of F1 teams before. Ferrari,
Mercedes
yeah.
Everybody is a target. Everybody is a target on their back or something.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And it was like, yeah, they did, because you were driving behind them for the rest of those 4 seasons. And then Lewis, like, my team don't make mistakes. It's like, well, your new team definitely does because you're driving for Ferrari. But anyway, yeah, like I think they've been the most confident, and you have to say like that's all mapped out onto track. So they've shown up with an engine that has clearly been working for them. They've shown up like just doing laps. Times mean very little, but they've been within striking distance of everyone until Ferrari kind of opened up today, and we don't know how much Ferrari were pushing. Mercedes weren't there, so it makes very little difference. But in terms of just lap times, they've been there or thereabouts. So like, while that doesn't tell you much, it tells you that like the team is willing to push the engine a bit more. The team is willing to push things a bit more. So there's confidence there. I just want to see, like, this is a very I think, like I said earlier on, with Ferrari, Red Bull and Mercedes, maybe Red Bull a little bit less, but like compared to say McLaren and Aston Martin, as we've talked about, like they all seem a bit more basic in terms of aero package. And then we kind of expected that, as we talked about earlier. I want to see like what Mercedes have done with aero package as we get to later on, because I've been saying a long time, I expect the engines to be different, but I think the engines will be close enough that aero can make a huge difference in this regulation set. We'll see. But I still want to see what Mercedes can do on aero, because that's been their big downfall. Like their engine has been fine for the past 4 years as well. Like it's not like they've had a shitty engine either. And if they show up with like 30 horsepower on, say, Red Bull, for example, yes, that's kind of devastating in a way. But if they fuck up the aero, that could still have a situation where Red Bull beat them on aero. So yeah. I still want to see where they lie there in terms of aero. But so far, so good. Like of all the teams so far, Mercedes have seen the most. Like if you were to put money on it right now after what we've seen, I'd put it on Mercedes. Like right now. But yeah, a lot can change. Yeah.
I also think the time that they've put together, at least until yesterday, I think it was Mercedes alone that was in the 116s. Today we've had both McLaren and Ferrari reach that point. Yep. But even the fact that these cars are putting these laps, just to put in context, the lap record is 1:15.6 by Oscar Piastri last season.
In race, in race,
right? Yeah. And that is a refined McLaren with perfect tires, perfect conditions. Everything was fine, and he was essentially just 7/10 faster than what Lewis did today, right?
Yeah.
At least when it comes to some of the takeaways, it just means that these cars are not going to be too slow. That was probably one of the concerns. So if that is sorted, then again, maybe other things might sort themselves out either ways.
Yeah. They're also apparently, like, it looks like the actual grip is lower, downforce is lower, so they may be more fun for the drivers as well. So hopefully that gives us some good racing.
Depends on the weight it's apparently driven, right? Because they have to keep very high revs, so it's not really, you're not really controlling everything with the throttle, but you're being forced to keep the car, and it will sound very weird probably during races while on the laps.
That's one point we didn't hear that too much, because there was a big worry that they would just be revving like massively through corners, and it didn't seem that ridiculous from what I heard. So
but no one's there, right? Exactly. So until we don't even know what's going to happen with Bahrain as well. Anyways, after Mercedes, talking about Ferrari, I probably, as you said earlier, a pleasant surprise, isn't it? We've heard a lot of things. We've also seen Ferrari keep a low profile, but the way they've gone about the entire program, and they end the day with the best time of the entire test, shakedown, whatever you want to call it, and with decent number of laps. It's not like they've been short of mileage either. They're very close to Mercedes when it comes to that. So the problem with Ferrari is always the Ferrari tax. Until you see them win one race, two races, be pretty much not throw it away until the 75% of the season is actually exhausted, it becomes very hard to put faith in them. But other than that, they've checked all the boxes that they needed to, isn't it?
Yeah. I would also just, anyone who's a Ferrari fan that's new to the sport, I will just say as well, even if Ferrari show up, first of all that, but also like even if someone shows up, even if Ferrari show up to the first race with a absolutely dominant car, please don't expect to win a championship until it's still dominant at the halfway point of the season.
75%.
Maybe last race, I would say.
That's Ferrari, right? But again, the problem is the expectation is it's right at the floor right now. We don't really expect anything from them, and whatever comes is a bonus. But at least they are not in a position where they will implode or something. At least that's a good thing. Jumping on to Red Bull,
I have to say I'm probably maybe in one of the minority camps here, but like I'm not surprised by how good Red Bull look. I kind of expected this from the start of the season. Like, as I was saying, I think in our like preview as well, that I'm like, this, a team going through big changes in F1 doesn't just fall apart overnight. And like Red Bull, even with Newey gone and like the leadership gone, the actual culture and like the people at Red Bull are still brilliant in terms of like Vache's still there, Balbo's still there. The engineers who are nameless that we don't hear about all day are still there, you know, and the Red Bull powertrains team was put together by a guy who knows what he's doing when it comes to building a business. So, you know, thank you, Horner. So yeah, like that's all together. So I'm expecting Red Bull to come out of the gates pretty good. What I want to see from Red Bull is actually nothing to do with testing. It's like, I want to see where Red Bull is at the halfway point of the season, because it's their development and like how they deal with issues this year is what I want to see, because this year for them is critical. Like even if they do really, really well this year, unless they're literally fighting for a title, they're losing Verstappen this year. And I want to see how this new Red Bull copes under that pressure. So again, when it comes to just this week of testing, I think Red Bull have done an amazing job, but I'm also not really surprised by that, because that is kind of what I've come to expect from Red Bull. And I don't think that was going to change overnight, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I'd still say, what's going on with Audi, I think a realistic expectation is that is what you should expect with any new power unit manufacturer that enters Formula One. That's where they should be. They should be struggling for a couple of days and then somewhat figuring it out on the third one. The Red Bull the Red Bull powertrain, I'd say, it hasn't struggled at all. It's done decent mileage. Everything seems to be working. Again, they are not logging in laps like a Mercedes or a Ferrari or McLaren today. They're not doing that, but they are doing 100 or so laps, which is good. That shows that there's decent enough reliability. I think there's one area where they probably they had a suboptimal 3 days. It was Isaac had a crash, so they were very, very circumspect how they ran the third day. I don't think they learned as much as they could have if everything went well. So maybe that's where again, as I talk about it, the preparation part of it, they are still a bit behind compared to maybe the Mercedes and Ferrari right now.
Yeah. I think one thing I will say on the Red Bull powertrain division as well with Audi, the comparison there is I do think like Red Bull has an advantage over like manufacturers coming in as well, because I think like Audi and these, like I've seen this even just from fans of like Audi and Cadillac outside of Formula One, but I've also seen it from like how Audi talk about Formula One and so on. I think they always like underestimate how difficult Formula One is going to be, because they're like, oh, well, we've won, like Audi's won in all these different series. And it's like, yeah, but this is like, it's not just that we're like F1 fans and we think we're better than everyone, but it's just like, we've just seen this movie over and over again in Formula One, and it's just like these big manufacturers come in thinking, well, we've blasted everyone else in Le Mans so we can kill it in Formula One. And it's like, yes, but you're coming up against teams whose only existence is Formula One. Like, it's not like they're making cars. Like, this is Red Bull, McLaren. Well, McLaren makes cars now, but you know what I mean? Like, these are pure just racing teams who have spent decades in Formula One. And I think like when you have and when you have like a Horner, for example, who's building a Formula One team and a Formula One engine, he's not going to Audi, like an Audi approach of going, right, let's bring our Le Mans guys over, let's bring these guys over. Christian Horner's going, we know how fucking difficult this is going to be, because I've seen like Renault fail. We've worked with these teams before. So instead, I'm going to pick all of the best guys who've built actual Formula One engines and bring those guys in. Yeah. And Audi instead goes, well, we're going to bring all of our best guys from hybrid, from Le Mans. And it's like, logically speaking, what Audi's doing makes sense, but it just never seems to map over. And I think that's where Red Bull have the advantage of going, well, we know what works and doesn't work in F1 specifically. This is a bespoke F1 creation. And I think that's why I was never that confident that Audi would just show up with an amazing engine, because it's like, I've seen this movie before and it never ends well, you know. And I'm just hoping, I guess we'll talk about Audi later on, but I'm hoping they'll be different because of some changes they've made. But I think it was always going to be a trickier
top 2
start
Ferrari
for
guys that moving to Audi. Yeah. So McLaren. Yeah.
You want to go first or me?
Go for it.
I think like engine wise and laps wise, McLaren was always going to be good. Like, they're running a Mercedes engine and they know how to integrate it. They've learned well from that over the last few years. So I wasn't expecting any issues with like reliability. And in terms of like package as well, I'm pretty impressed that they like just brought something that was fairly well along, and they kind of once again stuck to their word of like, oh, we're not going to show up the first couple of days, and I think McLaren is like the one that I still think they're probably not favourites because Mercedes could come out and play an absolute blinder. But I think like if Mercedes needs to be worried about any other team, I think we said this in the preview, like it should be McLaren.
Yeah.
Because McLaren is the type of team that like its new culture is they're not going to come out and be like, look at how great we are. We're going to win this season. McLaren is just constantly like, well, we're not sure how we're going to do. We're just going to build. And they just showed up quietly confident, put a lot of laps in. Car seemed fine. Drivers weren't complaining. The engineers are like, yep, it kind of met our expectations. And I think like if Mercedes needs to be worried about any team, it's McLaren with that attitude, because I haven't heard McLaren be like, we're behind schedule or there's any issues. And if McLaren had issues going on the recent history, they would be talking about them. But they're not underplaying or overplaying anything, which tells me McLaren probably have a very good package. So I think they're the kind of dark horse that could fuck up Mercedes' year so far.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
They did 70 something laps on the first day with Lando. I think they did 40 something with Oscar yesterday.
They did have some issues there, I think. Yeah.
The fuel pump something happened there.
Maybe they're running the 100% sustainable fuel.
Maybe, probably. Then today they did around 166 laps, so they kind of made up for whatever was needed, right?
Yeah.
So it almost seems to me that I think it seems that the fear that almost every manufacturer and even probably Formula One had was overstated, isn't it? Because new power unit, they are not going to work and whatever. Nothing. There are literally no issues. And for now, I just hope that in Bahrain they broadcast the whole thing, not the fuckery of 1 hour highlight or whatever nonsense.
I think they're doing that for the first 3 days.
They are supposedly doing that, but again, this was a change of plans for them as well. Initially, they were supposed to broadcast it, and last couple of years they have broadcasted both the tests. I remember it. I mean, I've covered them.
Even 2022, right? They broadcast both, all 6 days. Yeah.
I think all three tests. The first was in Barcelona, the second was in Bahrain, and I think there was a third one in Bahrain.
I don't think they broadcast Barcelona. I think they did more. It was
a closed test. Yeah.
Yeah, they let the media in though. They didn't block the media.
Yeah.
I hope they broadcast the Bahrain, the first test on the 11th, but from what I'm hearing, it's just an end of day 1 hour. But maybe
that's
after
the intimation, right? Yeah. And the intimation was made pre-Barcelona, so I think they had their fears. Yeah. They were playing it safe. I seriously hope they open it up. I don't see the point of them going about things the way they are, right? I think McLaren it's typical McLaren, isn't it? Keeping a low profile. Even during race week, as we've seen them, just keep the low profile when you push when you need to push. Other than that, just keep it quiet.
Yeah.
Get on with your business. For now, there aren't any. I do think there's an area where McLaren could start the season on the back foot, because that they've been very open about it themselves that they are not going to bring a B-spec car already in Melbourne.
Yeah.
So they are. McLaren is probably a team that's playing the long game, while others are looking at jumping at things right at the front of at the start of the season. So which approach works or not, I don't know, but let's see.
Yeah, I'm kind of coming around to your way of thinking earlier as well, though, in last week. Was it earlier this week? Of like
Monday.
I'm wondering if like the teams that have committed to a B-spec have kind of put themselves into a box that they shouldn't have. And the teams like I don't think Aston has technically a B-spec. I think they've brought like where they're at now and they're developing, they've got parts in the pipeline for this, but like anything they learn from here, they could easily just go, okay, cancel that, move this around, let's bring this over. Whereas I think like the other teams have already got a B-spec built and ready to go for Bahrain.
They've committed.
And now, and now like that's used the cost cap, it's used development wind tunnel and CFD time and all those things. So I wonder, will that come back? It could go both ways, right? Like you know, it could be that McLaren have made the mistake and boxed them in by like having their development plan already, and the other teams B-spec will build. But I'm kind of coming around to your way of thinking, which is like Mercedes could have boxed themselves in to bring a B-spec and then missed out. Like Nui's car will show up in Bahrain with something else that they're all like, oh God, we're not going to have that now in time.
Can't adopt those solutions.
Or we can't do it under cost cap because it's such a big change. And we've already spent that money on our B spec. Like I'm coming away to your way of thinking, which is actually doing what McLaren and Aston did of just like bringing the latest car here was a better idea.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Could be.
Yeah. We'll see.
Again, it depends. Look, if there's a scenario where teams like both Mercedes and Ferrari, they're bringing a B spec, right? So if they have such a massive head start, then probably they don't need to worry, right? That could also be a case. So it's a double-edged sword, right?
Depends.
So,
I mean, unless they bring a zero pod like Mercedes did in 2022, and that was their B spec, if you remember.
It was Mark Hughes who broke the news, and I remember vividly because that was the first season I covered completely. That was the beginning of the entire journey I've had. So at that time when Mark Hughes broke the thing, everyone was like, "Fuck, here we go again."
Back everyone thought like that's.
Yeah,
I remember that specifically because Adrian Newey said I hadn't thought of that implementation. I think was his words to the media at the time, and my thinking was, well, that's either really good for Mercedes or really bad for Mercedes, and it turned out to be the latter. So
especially because the context was Mercedes in 2020 had brought DAS. So it's not really a case of that they'd not done things out of the box. They just did that a year back, right? So the
assumption was if they've brought something, it's good.
And then the car hit the track and it was jumping like a kangaroo. And then what happened. Let's see. I think what McLaren has done here is they've kept a low profile. They are quietly confident. We'll probably have to wait until probably the second test at Bahrain to see where McLaren stacks up. I don't think they're going to show their cards at any point, which is a good thing as well. They keep the low profile for a reason. Next up, let's talk about Williams a bit. I think the way they've handled and gone about it.
Lots to cover.
Yeah.
Can I just say, like, I'm a bit... It was a bit of a weird video from James Vales as well, because normally they're quite like exact about stuff. Like James Vales has been pretty good at like telling us like the truth about what's going on and just being open about it. It's been great. And I feel like that video he did was like a lot of marketing speak where I'm like, all right, this felt like a hostage video instead of like a...
True. That was my first reaction because it just popped up, and the first thing I did was I checked sometimes what happens on Instagram, right? That there's a week or 10-day old video that suddenly pops up. So I checked the time. It's like 5 minutes back. Like, why is he sounding so depressed? I'm like, oh, okay.
It felt like there was a Darlington Capital guy off to the side, right? Being like, tell them everything's fine.
Yeah. Seems like it, right? Okay, so first of all, it's not a good look. With being overweight is bad, but not even making it to the test, it's worse, and it shouldn't be happening. That's entirely on James, and I think he'll be the first to raise his hand. For now, he's just saving his ass, right? That's the whole thing that's going on. Plus, I've still not lost hope on when it comes to James. In James all we trust, because
of course,
hashtag in James all we trust. Let's just see what car they bring. It's more or less they've cleared all the tests and everything. Let's see what they do, because even if it is 10-15 kgs over, we've had cars that were that heavy at the start of 2022, but then they come around. It happens. It's part of a new regulation. What it means is they're not going to be front runners. I think that's safe to say.
I genuinely think like missing the test, like this is all kind of, obviously they don't want to, but for me it feels all expected for a team that is moving this quickly. Like we see this even with Aston over the last couple of seasons. It's like, you're like, oh, well, how have you invested this much and still fucked up? And again, sorry Audi to bring you in, but like, this is one of those things again where F1 is more difficult than everyone makes it out to be. Like it's just, these things happen. So I think for a team like Williams, this is almost to be expected. But my only concern is like James Vales, I thought had been brilliant in terms of like setting expectations, building things up, like, and then last year, I think he may have like gone a bit too Mercedes, maybe a bit too Toto Wolff in like, we're focused on next year. Next year, we're going to be fighting for, they essentially said like wins, like this is going to be a championship winning team and like all these things. And then comes on with a hostage video of like, you don't just change to become like a championship winning team like in 1 year. Like this is not a championship team. And you're like, well, you shouldn't have set those expectations last year. So I I think Williams is exactly where kind of they should be. And I think like, I expect this team to build up further, and I don't think this is going to be a horrible year. And I think like, even if they show up to Australia and they don't do great, I imagine by the end of the season, this will be a team that is starting to like get close to podiums and, you know, that sort of thing. But I think he's just up. Yeah, this just feels like the first mistake from James that I've seen in terms of like, not even not showing up, just setting the wrong expectations, because the moment you start doing that in Formula One is the moment like things start going wrong. You know, like if you don't set those expectations, then you're given a lot more rope to play with. And James last year, I think maybe just got a bit too excited and maybe needed to tamp that down.
Seems like that's right.
Yeah.
My only thing when it comes to this is just look at McLaren's trajectory. It wasn't always rosy for them. They had their ups and downs, right? So it takes time. It takes time to, and especially Williams was in a
really bad.
Yeah. Probably it was in a worse position than where McLaren was when Zach Brown took over. Because McLaren never had finance issues, right? Yeah, exactly.
Well, like, I mean, basically the money dried up in 2004, was it? When BMW decided to leave at the end? 2004, 2005?
Yeah.
And then like since then, there's essentially been no real investment until 21, 22.
There have been some pockets, right? But it's not been, it's not a team consistent. It's a team that's teetering towards would it or would it not. It was just hanging by a thread, and then ultimately Claire had
there was
to
a good chance it wasn't going to be there, right? Yeah. There was a good chance Williams wouldn't be here right now. You could say the same about McLaren, but this felt even closer to that.
Yeah,
you know?
But McLaren had the people sitting in Bahrain, right? So they a partial ownership from them. It's just that they wanted things to be right now. So that way it kind of worked out for them.
I guess McLaren as well had already started building its road cars by that point too, which really helped. Yeah. You know, like
next up, Racing Bulls. Pretty under the radar thing. I mean, typical Racing Bulls test, right? Because ultimately we'll find out by the end of it where they lie. They just went out there and did the job. No crashes. I think that's a good thing for both Lawson and Lindblad. That's all they can really do right now. Next up, we have, I think, Haas. Fuck ton of laps. Fuck ton of laps. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
The Haas basically was a good advertisement for the Ferrari engine. Nothing more, nothing less.
True. The very first day did 166 laps and
something crazy. 120, I think, first day. Yeah, something crazy.
Yeah, and that was the highest number of laps, and they're like, "Wow, Ferrari is reliable." I think that's what a customer team needs to do, right?
Yeah,
it was being a very, very good customer team, especially since Cadillac is being a very bad customer team. I think so. Yeah, there's nothing much to talk about with Haas.
I just want to see. I want to see what they can do with aero, with the new facilities they have access to with Toyota now in Cologne and that kind of thing.
It will take time, right?
Yeah, like Dallara, I think, is still producing their stuff, but they're no longer designing it for them. So they're designing that properly, kind of in house now. So let's see what they can do. But I genuinely think in the short term, I wouldn't be surprised if that makes things more difficult for Haas than less difficult. So I want to see where they are, but I don't have anything to say on Haas. Like, it's kind of, we'll see. Yeah. They're not blowing up. It's good.
Which is a good thing. Yeah.
So
Cadillac, talking about blowing up. So
poor Perez.
You saw his comment?
Everything.
Exactly. The engine is not working, the car is not working, there's issues there are issues with the functionality.
He said in Spanish about it was like it was todo. It was I saw some quote, it was like todo con la motor, todo con la electrónicos, todo con la aerodinámicas, which is like everything with the engine, everything with the electronics, everything with the aero. And it was like oof.
Was expected, right? But it should be expected. They just announced last year that they were going to
Wasn't expected. I've had 5, maybe 6 comments of people saying Cadillac don't fail. And I had to reply to them and say,
what is the Cadillac racing history though? I don't really necessarily know.
They beat everyone in the race to Chinese sales. So that was good.
Yeah. Good on them.
No, they were very good in WEC, right? But like,
I don't remember.
No?
I don't really think so. No. Okay. Ferrari has been winning the last few years. Before that, it was Toyota. Before that, it was Porsche. Before that, it was Audi.
IndyCar? I don't know. No.
Yeah, I think it is. It is essentially an Andretti operation, right?
Yeah.
So Andretti is basically the Ferrari of IndyCar.
Yeah. I don't want to bash like Cadillac because I actually think they're making but I actually think they're making all the right decisions. Like Graham Loudon has like set these expectations from the start, and like they've kind of been making the wrong decision. What in what way?
They should be when Horner approached, they should have hired Horner. They should have 100%. Given him the team. But let him buy 20% stake and forget about the team for the next 4 years. Let him do his job. Let him build whatever he wants, and at the same time start your power unit operation. Have the whole thing in place.
They absolutely should have done that.
You have the framework in place with Toto and Mercedes. Just do it again. But Americans, right?
Yeah, they should have done that. I'll agree with that one. But I mean, in terms of just like how they're approaching the season, I think they've made the right calls there. And I just think once again, like those fans who are Cadillac fans maybe and new to F1, again, I will say, like, I've seen this movie before repeatedly. It's like Cadillac, I think, will do a good job, but it's not going to happen overnight. And if they try and make it happen overnight, they'll end up like Toyota. And that didn't go well. So it doesn't matter how deep your pockets are or what your history is. If you haven't been in F1, you still have to start just like everyone else. So, it's
fine.
We'll see.
Audi.
I think in terms of like Audi's car and engine, it's been okay. And I think like
the third day
I kind of trust.
Right? Imagine if you were recording it yesterday. We wouldn't be saying these things.
It wouldn't have been great. Like, I think they made the right decision was it the end of 24 with like Mattia and, why can't I remember his name right now?
Jonathan Wheatley.
That's the one. They made the right decision, kind of almost handing them the keys and saying, right, you run the team now, essentially, and stop having like the Audi board and company like interfering all the time. And I think they're going in the right direction. But I think some of the performance we're going to see this season is down to, again, what I said earlier over and over again, like maybe Audi being a bit overconfident in the engine department for making their first F1 engine. And we saw that with like the amount of like the lack of running basically in the first couple of days that they ran. So let's see, but I'm underwhelmed so far. I haven't seen anything that's made me excited for Audi. Apart from the livery. I do kind of like the livery. It's growing on me.
I don't necessarily like the livery because it's very dull. It won't pop on the grid. That's one of the major issues. Secondly, I expected this season to be the way they are going right now. It's probably going to be a fight between them and Cadillac to see who finishes 11th. I think that might happen.
Oh,
yeah.
I think they'll beat Racing Bulls. And Haas. We'll see. The engine, though, that's the problem.
That's the problem, right? And it's expected. I think what the problem is, the Red Bull powertrain, it has warped what a power unit should be doing on the very first time when it is running, right? The expectations, it has just taken it to a next level, but that's just what Red Bull does, isn't it? So I can understand.
As I said, they're in F1. That's the difference.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Audi, probably the year is going to be a bit of they'll write it off because there's not really much they can do. It's just a year where they are going to learn a lot on how the power unit is wherever it stacks up ultimately. Because again, it's probably a bit too early to say that things are going to be bad. They did almost more than 100 laps. And if the power unit has decent grunt and it's able to continue having this kind of reliability moving forward, then maybe they are in a decent position, right? Could happen. The best case scenario is 7 to 11. That is the range where I'd expect Audi to fit in. And for the first year, I think it's acceptable. I don't think criticism is due to either. I don't think either Binotto or Wheatley should be criticized for where Audi finishes now, because a lot of the nonsense that has been going on, it's not either Wheatley or Binotto's fault. The nonsense was down to the board where they didn't really release the funds for Andreas Seidel.
Yeah.
When Binotto joined in 2024, the first thing he told was, for the last year, there had been no funds that had been supplied to Sauber. So how the fuck are they going to build the facilities and take it up, right?
You've got to say, if you look at like what Wheatley and Badano were able to do in 2025, like that shows that they made the right impact. They were making the right decisions.
Exactly.
I think the only thing I want to judge Audi on this year, to be honest, is not even the engine. It's just like, how good is the aero? Because realistically, Sauber now should have no excuses in terms of like progressing. I'm not expecting them to jump anywhere, but I think like we should see a logical progression on like, can that team build an aero, like, you know, a good aero philosophy?
Yeah.
And if they can't, then there's some bigger issues there. But like, yeah, I sound like a broken record, but as I said, like just the Audi engine, like you would expect Red Bull to be further down, but as we kind of talked about earlier, I think Red Bull had kind of the in-house advantage, you know, by knowing the problems from being around.
Yeah. What's the next team then? We've gone through
Alpine.
Yeah, your favorite team. They'll have a good season, by the way.
Yeah.
By the looks of it.
They have the right engine, so that's good.
That's why.
You know, they probably are going to have the right owner soon, so that's good.
They might not. I'm not entirely sure, but the reporting from Craig Slater on Sky Sports, Horner reached out to the FIA president specifically to talk about the 12th team. So he might be looking to go solo.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
And I think the reason why he's looking to go solo is precisely what we discussed. Yeah, exactly.
Renault being idiots, basically.
Being Renault.
Yeah, because Renault could easily just go, oh wait, we could have 70% of a team that's fucking useless, or we could have 40 or 50% of a team that we don't do anything, wins championships and puts our name out there. But no, they're French and they'll go, no, we can hold off the Germans. We'll be fine. Don't worry about us. Good luck with that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, look, Enstone's always kind of been quite good at building chassis, like building aero development. So, and they've got the Mercedes engine. So yeah, I think they'll have a fine season. I really hope they reconsider on the Horner thing, because if they don't, I'm kind of like at a loss for what happens to this team going forward then. Because I don't know who else is going to come in and like work with Renault on saving it. I genuinely don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
especially when they've fired half the staff.
Yeah. Like I'm at a loss for like who comes, like, do they just, because even like, yeah, I don't know, like what other entity could come in and fix that team other than Horner? Like I can't think of a thing, because even if another, let's say like a big manufacturer comes in and says like, we'll take it off your hands.
Yeah.
I have no more confidence in any other big manufacturer outside of F1 that can come in and do any better than Renault can at the minute. So I don't know.
They can. I mean, again, depends, right? Which
sure, yeah.
Could be any, could be a BMW, could be a Hyundai, any of them. We don't. But again, if that is what they're looking for, then that is what they're looking for. I don't.
But think about it in that situation. If a BMW or a Hyundai comes in and says they're taking over, they're probably going to just reach out to Horner and ask him to buy in. Like, that's probably going to be their first step. You know what I mean? So like, it just seems
smart. By the way, if they're smart.
If they're smart. Yeah. If they're smart.
You don't.
Because there's no other team principal out there that you can get that could do better right now. You know? Like, it's, for anyone who dislikes Horner, just my question is, and you can put it in the comments, like, they're not getting anyone else on the grid as a team principal right now. Like, there's no, like, so who outside of F1 can they bring in who's better than Horner? Like, that's the honest question.
The point isn't really about bringing who is better than Horner. The problem is that the conditions that Horner has, they aren't willing to satisfy those. He wants stake within the team. He wants full control, and I don't think for teams it becomes very tough to give a piece of the pie, right? And I can understand that. Running a business and all, you know that you don't hand over equity just for nothing. Good on you.
Yeah, sorry. I agree, but if my business was the Alpine F1 team for the past 6 years, 10 years, my bad, sorry, if you include Renault,
yeah.
If that was my business for the past 10 years, I'd probably be like, you know what, I'm probably not the guy who should be running this, you know?
Yeah.
Like, clearly I'm doing a shitty job, so I'm going to get someone else in.
But you have self-awareness. I doubt
I'm
that
not French. That's the problem. Yeah. They're sitting there going, it's fine. We are still on the track. We can move on. We can move forward. We can take over France. We already have France. I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sorry. I've been practicing my RFK impression. So
yeah, I hope we've not missed any team, right?
I don't think we have. I'll
just go through them once.
Just in case, because otherwise we'll be called absolute morons.
Yeah.
We are,
that
but that's
anyways,
beside the point. Yeah. So we've got Alpine, we've discussed Aston Martin, Audi, Cadillac, we've discussed those. Ferrari, Racing Bulls, Red Bull, Haas, McLaren, Williams, and my Riverside is in the way. And Mercedes. Yeah, we've discussed everyone.
Perfect. So final topic before we wrap it up. The Lewis Hamilton race engineer situation. I think it's fucking stupid. That's what's going on right now. He doesn't have a race engineer. And there are only 2 tests left. The first race is on, I think, March 14 or March 15. That's 45 days away. So
are they not? They're bringing someone from McLaren, right? Who's supposed to be his race engineer. I mean, is the thinking.
The point is you fired someone because he did not have the right chemistry with Lewis. And if your answer to that is bring in someone who will spend even less time with him than Adami did and have a better chemistry, that's not logical in any which way. It
sounds like Ferrari, doesn't it?
Yeah. And again, I won't even say this is on Lewis in any which, but I think for me the biggest problem is one of the basic principles when you're working in an organization is if you're getting rid of a resource, you have a replacement in place, or you have someone in the pipeline that is joining as soon as possible if the role is critical. And I think the role of being Lewis Hamilton's race engineer is critical. And why they've done it now, first of all, it was an abrupt firing apparently. Right. And secondly, if he has been removed, why do you not have the replacement ready? Why is Lewis piggybacking off Charles's engineer? That's very Ferrari, but that's very stupid because if you had an issue with the race engineer, why? I don't know. Not the ideal way to start a season, is it?
No, it's really not. Yeah. I mean, Lewis going to Ferrari having issues. Who would have predicted that?
I mean, look on the positives. Now he topped the Shakedown.
Yeah, which means he's winning the championship.
Imagine
Speaking
if
of which, Speaking of which, to top it all off, I think we should do this at the end, like the end of this testing, the end of the 11th, the first Bahrain test, and the end of the final Bahrain test.
Yeah.
As of right now, I'm not sure what way we do this, but let's just say team. No, let's make it really simple. Which team do you think is winning? Either driver or constructors, but basically just team. Like, which is going to be the best team? So, which is going to win the constructors? Let's say
right now.
Let's say drivers, because if it's Red Bull, for example, it would be unfair to say constructors because it could end up being a one driver team again.
Yeah.
So let's just say drivers championship. Which team, not driver, which team is winning the drivers championship this year?
Mercedes.
Okay.
I think right now it's Mercedes. That's up again, very closely followed by both. I don't rule out either McLaren or Ferrari for now. Again, Ferrari has a history of implosion, 20-year history of that. But there's McLaren there. I don't really want to rule them out. But for now, Mercedes is in pole position.
I'm going to say McLaren. And it's not because I think Mercedes has done a better job this week, but Mercedes' overconfidence is still worrying me. I feel like there's a boot going to drop in one of these tests. It's going to be like, oh shit. So I'm going to say McLaren.
I think if the testing had ended after Thursday, we probably would have been in a situation where Mercedes would have been the runaway favorite. But today, the way Ferrari went about it, it kind of opened up more possibilities where because the lap time is more or less matched. Now, we don't know the fuel loads or power unit modes, whatever they have. It can't be too much of it can't be that big a variance either. So let's see what they do. It
on
just
logic,
shows
it's
that
Mercedes. On vibes, it's Mercedes.
On
vibes, but on
logically,
2022, it's McLaren. Just
I'm surprised you've not gone for Aston Martin. I mean, just imagine if it's the first day of running in Bahrain and Alonso and Stroll, they just do 200 laps and Aston Martin is right there.
Oh,
that would be...
I would love that because honestly, like, look, the thing is, it's not even like just because it's like Alonso 20 years on from winning his last title. Like, it's not Newy's new team. It's none of those storylines. It's actually just the fact that, like, if I had to pick a team, it's like Red Bull, Mercedes and McLaren have all won multiple titles in the past decade. So I'm kind of like, if they win again, yeah, cool. But it's also like, okay, same team, just winning again.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's Aston, one, it's a new storyline. It's a new team. Yeah, new player. And two, Irish bias. That team was originally Jordan. So Eddie Jordan died last year. It would be a cool story because I'm sure, I can guarantee you someone, probably Newey, would be like, Eddie, you know, we want to say thanks to Eddie for everything he did for the team as well.
You could say thanks to Malia as well, Vijay Malia.
Yeah.
Force India.
for Force India. But for me, it'd be a nice coming home of like Eddie Jordan, you know, finally winning a title, even if it's not really his, if you know what I mean. So that would be way cooler than like, hey, McLaren won a third constructors in a row. Like, okay.
By the way, if McLaren does win a third constructor in a row, I think that's the beginning of an era for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you cannot deny them. So let's see.
No.
Cool. Wrapping it up. Thanks, guys. We are recording 2 podcasts this week. So first of all, if you're still listening and not subscribed, what the fuck's wrong with you? Subscribe. Take care. Bye-bye. See ya.
Bye, everybody.